look here at what you have all said. Okay, so you can see many of you want to raise your professional profile. Looks like many of you want to have a positive impact. Many of you want to do more meaningful work. And the good news is that personal branding can actually help you with these things. It can help you raise your professional profile by increasing your influence. It can actually help you make wiser career moves, the career moves that allow you to have a more fulfilling career, one that you actually find more meaningful, and perhaps that's one where you can have a greater impact. And it also helps you, for those of you who have entrepreneurial aspirations, helps you create your new venture. So we're going to cover three very specific but broad topics today. So we are going to start off by talking about what branding is. Now, I know many of you know branding already. It's probably something you've covered. Probably some of you have probably even studied this. Some of you even probably work in marketing. I want to just do a very quick, about a 10-minute crash course in branding, just to remind everybody of some key branding principles that you can apply to your own career. Specifically, what do brands do to be effective? The 4 characteristics of strong brands, and a couple principles from branding and marketing that you can apply to yourself if you want to stand out and differentiate yourself from others. That is going to take us to about 4:30, and then we're going to switch gears and talk about personal branding. Specifically, what is personal branding? Why should you care about it? How can it benefit you? I want to help you define your personal brand today by walking through a 4-part framework to help you establish and get clear on what you want to be known for. We will do a breakout room exercise where you get a chance to pair with one another and share your personal brand highlights with each other and get some feedback from each other. So if you're not camera ready, you may want to get camera ready in the next half hour or so. Okay, and then we're going to come back, and then I'm going to just give you an example of how to bring all this together, and also 3 examples of how your personal brand can guide you. We will then take a quick break at around 5 o'clock. It's going to be a quick 5-minute break. Then I want to make sure you walk out of here with some concrete steps you can start taking to build your personal brand. So this isn't just about theory, this is about application in your career. And we'll talk about 3 ways to reinforce your brand. First of all, on social media, specifically LinkedIn, 3 steps you can take within your organization, and also 3 steps you can take to raise your visibility in your broader industry. And by the end of today, I hope by 6 o'clock, you're going to understand some relevant branding principles, be able to clearly articulate your unique brand, and most importantly, take steps to make your brand credible and believable. That is the agenda. Okay. Now, you're probably wondering who I am and who you're going to spend the next 2 hours with. So I'll just take a minute and introduce myself. So again, my name is Joseph Liu. I'm a career consultant, personal branding consultant based in the UK. I spent about 10 years working in brand marketing myself. So I started off in corporate brand marketing. Then I did my MBA at the University of Michigan. I marketed household goods for a while. And then I moved to the UK. And I'm originally from the United States, if you haven't figured that out yet from my accent. I moved to the UK about 14 years ago, and then I marketed luxury desserts for a while. What I do now is I try to take these principles of branding and marketing and apply them to people as they're trying to relaunch their careers. And oftentimes, when professionals like you come to Oxford and enroll in a program here, one of the motivations is to take your career in a new direction. So my work falls into 3 areas. I'm a speaker, workshop, and webinar host. I have worked with Oxford for over a decade now. It's actually one of the first schools I worked with. I do work primarily with business schools, but I also do some corporate engagements at companies like Microsoft, IBM Consulting. I'll be back at the World Bank next week to give a talk. I speak primarily about personal branding and career transition topics. I'm also a career advisor, so I do some writing for publications, including Forbes and Fast Company. One of the topics we're going to talk about in part 3 today is how you can get yourself featured in the media as a way of raising your presence in your industry. So I'm going to share with you some insights I have gained by doing some writing myself. And I'm also a podcast host. So I host a podcast called Career Relaunch, and I feature people who have made major career changes. One of the things I've seen again and again is that people's personal branding has a direct impact on their ability to open up a new chapter for themselves. So that's why I really care so much about this topic, and I've seen how powerful of a tool it can be. So let's start by doing a quick crash course in branding. Okay, and most of these are going to be reminders, but I want to start by talking about what makes for effective branding. And the best way I can think to do this is through a quick exercise. So can anybody tell me in the chat box which brand this is without seeing the name of the brand? Anybody know which brand this is? Ah, yes. Okay, so this is the Nintendo brand. And if you haven't, anybody played this game here? Super Mario. This is one of the very first video games I ever played. I'm dating myself. This was back in like the 80s. Okay, and this is when Nintendo became really popular and really famous. And to this day, they're still known for Super Mario Brothers. They're still known for this iconic logo, which hasn't really changed over the years. Okay, so there's one brand. Anybody know this brand here? Which brand this is? Okay, yeah, we got a lot of people saying Tiffany, which is in fact correct. This is the Tiffany Robbins Egg Blue. It is a trademarked color in the jewelry industry. If you work in the jewelry industry, you can't use this color or it would be trademark infringement. Yes, April, you are correct. It is actually, did you know you can actually own a color? This is a trademarked color. It's owned by Tiffany. Okay, so great brands are also known for their sounds. So hear that. Does anybody know which brand that is when you hear that? Okay, we've got right away Vlad, Maria, Olivia, Oliver, German. Okay, April saying McDonald's. This is in fact I'm Loving It campaign, which is the longest running campaign in the history of McDonald's. And in just a few seconds, we're all, after you hear that little jingle, we're all thinking about Big Macs and French fries. Let's try one more just for the fun of it. Anybody know which brand that is right there? Okay, yes, it is. It is. Somebody said IBM. Okay, so yes, no, this is actually Netflix. This is the Netflix to building your personal brand. Yes, okay. Yeah, I should try to like come up with some sort of a jingle at the start of my sessions. So, oh, UPS, not IBM. Okay, right. Okay, so anyway, all these brands are very recognizable. Okay, and that is why you don't have to see the brand to know that this right here is Spotify, and we got Airbnb, we got Adidas, Adobe. It's because these brands show up consistently all the time. You know what the brand is without even seeing the name of the brand. And now can just imagine the analog here is what would happen if you could walk to the front of the room in your organization or any room at any conference in your industry and people immediately knew who you were. They knew your name, they knew your skill set, they knew your job title, they knew what you were good at, they knew what you're not so good at. They definitely know how they feel when they work with you. That's your brand. That is your reputation, and that is what follows you around like a shadow, whether you like it or not. And so the reason why I want to talk about this is I would like you to get control of your brand. And so that when you do show up, that people think of what you want them to think of. Okay, which gets into this idea of what makes a brand strong. And can anybody in the chat box, or you could actually raise your hand if you want to and just tell me verbally, or just unmute yourself and tell me verbally, what do you think is the characteristic of a strong brand? What would make, if you think of the strong brands out there, what do they do? Okay, so we've got they're simple, Ali says. Okay, Maria says they're familiar. They can live, Oliver, sorry, I keep on saying Olivier. Oliver says consistent. And Peter also says consistent, okay, recognizable. I think that's how you spell that. Okay, you have a feeling, someone mentioned. There's some people say there's a scent. Like imagine Lush, for example, is a good example of a brand that is known for a scent. Okay, we've got Anvar saying bold, we've got Ma saying low. Sorry, I may have missed a couple of you guys here as it goes by pretty quickly on the screen. Tao saying trust. We've got Thiago saying resilient. Yes, we've got Leon saying there's some sort of an iconography or there's a color that they're known for. Okay. All right. Okay. So this is a good starter list. Now, what I'd like you to think about now as you look at this list is how many of these things are you doing in your own career? How similarly are you behaving? And if you could perhaps embody some of these principles that these brands embody, perhaps you could reap some of the same benefits. So, for example, how simple of a person are you? Are you somebody who's really complicated and hard to understand? Are you somebody who is familiar to others? Do people know who you are? How consistent are you when you show up in a meeting? How consistent are you in how you treat people? How do other people feel when they work with you? Okay. How do you smell? So, I mean, what, are you bold? Okay. How much influence do you have? How much trust do you have in your organization? How resilient are you as an individual? We're in a period of time where there's been a lot of tech layoffs, for example, in that industry alone. There have been a lot of consulting layoffs this year. How resilient are you in the face of adversity? These are all parts of your personal brand. Now, when I think of what makes a brand strong, in addition to what you just mentioned, great brands are, some of these overlap with what you just said. Great brands are distinct, they're visible, they're authentic, and they're meaningful. So let's just go through an example of a brand that does each one of these well, in my opinion. Now, this is the W Hotel concept. Now, this is, I don't know if is anybody here from the Middle East? Just raise your hand. If you're not familiar with what's on the screen here, there's this area called Neom, and this is going to be in the Middle East. This is in an area called Trojana. This is going to be this futuristic ski resort in the Neom Mountains. And so JW Marriott has actually been selected as the first hotel partner, and they're going to be building the first 2 hotels in the region. Okay, so we've got somebody here who lives in Saudi. You're probably familiar with this. How many of you who have stayed at the W Hotel, how many of you like staying at the W Hotel? Let's get a show of hands. Who likes staying at the W Hotel? Anybody? You just click the raise hand button. Okay, Kalpana. Who else? We've got Alexandra, Ahmad, Danila. Because okay, so would anybody like to share why you like staying at the W Hotel with the group? What is it about it that you like? Anybody want to just unmute yourself and chime in? Anybody want to share? You can type it in the chat box. Who would like to tell us why you like staying at the W Hotel? Any of those people? No? Nobody. Okay, well,
Hi.
yes, go ahead.
Hi.
Yes.
It's just the whole experience because it's very unique and it's very, very, let's say, plush from a point of view of experience, and you feel like you're on top of the world.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Kalpana. So yeah, you feel like you're on top of the world. It's a lush experience. We can see some people commenting in the chat box. The beds are closer to the floor. Okay, it's modern, it's creative, it smells nice. We talk about scent. We keep going back to scent. It's innovation. It's if you've never been to a W Hotel, is it Chauncey? A DJ on the weekends. Okay, you walk in, it feels like a nightclub when you walk into the hotel. There's loud music. There's like club techno music. People are dressed in black. Everybody's good looking. Like it's like a clubhouse, and you just happen to be able to sleep there too. Somebody says, "Is it Katerina?" Okay, great drinks. Okay, so and the quality is the same. It gives you the same feeling everywhere. It's very distinct in an otherwise commoditized category. Okay, so if you haven't gotten a chance to stay at a W Hotel, check it out. It's not for everybody. Okay, it's not for everybody. I'm probably not cool enough to stay at the W. I'm probably getting too old to stay at the W Hotel at this point. It's been a while since I've been in a W Hotel. Okay, next up, visibility. Great brands are visible, like Apple, that shows up in more blockbuster movies than any other brand out there, or Fendi, or IKEA in London. If you have not been to central London recently, this is an installation that is basically it's IKEA doing something very different. They're opening up a concept store in central London, Oxford Street, which is the heart of shopping in London, and they've erected this scaffolding covered in their iconic blue bag. This is a visibility campaign, and so this is an example of a brand that is very, very visible out there. Now, Alexander's making a very interesting point in the chat box, going back to W, is I'm a federal consultant. And even if the price was competitive, it would be bad for my brand. Yeah, right. So it sounds like you're more of a Holiday Inn, maybe like what would be the equivalent of Holiday Inn in the UK? I guess it'd be like Premier Inn, I guess, would be what it would be here. So, okay. So yeah, it does have a certain image. Certain people go to the W Hotel. Who here owns a barber coat and likes their barber coat? Anybody here own a barber coat and like their barber coat? Nobody? Oh, we've got, is it Fod has a barber hat. Maria loves your barbecue. Would you guys mind telling me, like Maria, or anybody else who has a barber coat, would you mind telling me what you like about your barber coat?
It's I won't say it's consistent. It's not consistent, but it's everlasting because the style doesn't really change, and
Hmm.
it's a really good quality.
Okay. Are you from the UK by chance, Maria?
Ireland,
You're
but
Ireland. Sorry,
okay,
my
it's okay.
accent recognition is very poor as an American. Okay, okay, great. So you mentioned that it doesn't change very much over time. Okay, so it's like it's not, yeah, it's something that's very consistent over time. Anybody else want to share why you like your barber?
I've had mine for 10 years and it's still on the chair behind me. So
All
it's
right,
good. Yeah, it
it's
lasts.
good. Edward says, yeah, it's good. Anybody else? Uh, Vikas, did you want to?
Yeah, so I own quite a few of the barber stuff, and they just last what somebody said just now, and especially for autumn wears for going out for walks, just like the staple thing you got to be wearing barber. So that's
Okay.
nice. So
Yeah, it's a great coat for going
yeah,
for a walk,
yeah,
especially if you live in the UK where it rains all the time. Except for
exactly.
today, it rains. It's been raining here like every day since February, and so you got to have a coat that's waterproof. Now, if you're not familiar with Barber, and George, you mentioned Canada Goose, that is kind of a similar concept. So Barber, if you're not familiar with it, it's a I know some of you may not have heard of it. So Barber is a British brand, and it has been around since the late 1800s. It originally started as a military waterproofing company. This is some video from their factory in South Shields, England, where they still hand make many of their products. And you can see the comments here in the chat box. As Lisa mentioned, it's a coat for life. Uh, Someone earlier mentioned that he's had it for 10 years and it's still in great shape. People go for walks. It's like a classic design that doesn't really change over time. And if you look at the coat now, it looks very similar to how it looked in the late 1800s, and yet it's this quintessentially classic coat. So, and yes, as Jay mentioned, they offer repairs and re-waxing. So yeah, they're known for their cotton waxed coat, and it is a classic design that has not changed. They are very authentic to their roots, and great brands are meaningful, like Oliver Co. Now, if you haven't heard of Oliver Co., this is it's a brand partnership between a Turkish company and also a British company. And if you've ever had a friend, or maybe you are vegan and you want to buy them a product that is sort of like leather but isn't leather hide, you might want to check out Oliver Co. because what they do is they take they take apple skins, and they repurpose what would otherwise be thrown away apple skins, and they turn them into what they call apple leather. They use in their liners sustainable plastics that have been recycled. They use organic cottons, and a lot of people like buying this product because it's a meaningful brand that is trying to do some good in the world. Does anybody here own anything from EcoAlf? Show of hands. Anybody have anything here from EcoAlf? No. Okay. A less well-known brand is a Spanish brand based in, I think they're based in Barcelona. They might be just outside of Barcelona. Spanish brand, and they were first known because they were taking these pineapple leaves and turning them into sneakers, and a lot of celebrities in Hollywood were wearing them. And now they're really going hard after the sustainability angle, trying to tackle the personal care segment with refillable personal care bottles. Now that's a tough category to crack. Nobody's really been able to do this yet, but they are attempting to do it. And I would love to see them do this because boy, the world could use a little less waste. And a lot of people out there like to buy EcoAlf products because they're trying to do some good in the world. And that's quite motivating for consumers. So the question to ask yourself as you're thinking about these characteristics of strong brands is, again, how much of this are you going to integrate into your own personal branding? How distinct, how visible, how authentic, how meaningful are you going to make your own personal brand? Which then gets into the last couple concepts to talk about before we talk about your personal brand, which is, what is a brand? It is essentially the accumulation of the functional and emotional benefits that a product or service delivers. And so no matter what product you're marketing out there, generally as marketers, we're trained to think about products as a set of benefits along specifically 4 domains, what we call a benefit ladder. So what is it? Okay, so we got a camera here, and every camera functionally takes pictures or captures images. There is also an emotional benefit. There is how you feel. What does it do for you emotionally? And finally, what does it do for your life? And so this is a very common trajectory for when a brand first launches, they're explaining what it is, and eventually they want to get to this life benefit because that's where a lot of really strong connections are made. So just to give you an example, we've got Volvo here, which by definition is a car. And functionally, what every car does is it transports you. Can anybody tell me in the chat box what do you think a Volvo car that transports you does for you emotionally? Okay, and we've got Oliver saying safety, Andre saying safety, German saying safety. Okay, Lisa saying that makes you feel old, right? Safety, ugly, safety, safety. Okay, Ford again. Okay, so yeah, provide safety. That is what it's generally known for. And what it does for your life is it protects the people that you love. And that's why in Volvo advertising, you never see an individual person sitting in the car. It's typically a parent in the front and kids in the back. So the brands that are able to successfully, okay, now this is not easy to do, are able to successfully climb what we call this benefit ladder here, are the brands that build the strongest relationships with people. And a brand that is notorious for trying to operate at this life level as quickly as possible is Apple. Now, who here is your digital companion for life? The future of health is on your wrist. The future of your health is on your wrist, is what they want you to feel and to think when you use their products. Okay, and that's why Apple fans are so crazy out there. This is The Onion, which is a satirical publication from the United States. You can see down here, these are made up articles and they make fun of society. And here we go, Apple fans chopping off hands in anticipation of new iHand. Okay, people go crazy over Apple products because they have such strong connections with their consumers. That is branding 101 in a nutshell. Okay, any comments or questions about branding before we switch gears now and talk about personal branding? Anybody? No. Okay, let's talk about your personal brand. And what is personal branding? How can it benefit you? How can you define your personal brand? And what are the ways that your personal brand can guide you in your career and your life? And so let's do a quick warm up again. Let's start with 3 people. And let's do what we did with Aston Martin and IKEA. What's the first thing that comes to mind when you see Gordon Ramsay? Okay, we've got Peter saying angry, Shri saying noisy, we've got Johanna saying idiot sandwich. Okay, swearing, angry chef, angry, yuck. Okay, confident, skilled. Okay, arrogant. Okay, all right, driven. So you can see that's his reputation, immediate associations, good food. All right, let's try somebody very different. So let's go to Greta Thunberg, very different industry and sector, environmental activist. We got brave, persistent. Audrey's got love. Okay. Angry, speech. Go Greta, confused, pioneer, angry. Okay. Activist on this spectrum, irritating. Okay. Somebody's mentioning a syndrome that she has. Okay. So you can see again, immediate associations, principled. Okay. And notice the quite polarized views of this individual. Oftentimes, when you have a strong personal brand, people react very strongly to you, both in positive and also negative ways. Try one final one. Let's go across to the other side of the other hemisphere here, and let's talk about Jack Ma, founder and CEO of the Alibaba Group, Chinese hero. Okay, Taobao. We've got billionaire, pioneer, absent. Yeah, he's kind of not in the public eye as much these days. Role model, innovative, smart, greed. Okay. Genius, revolutionary, loudmouth, relentless. Again, notice quite strong opinions of these people. Now, what about your reputation? What would happen if somebody put your face up on the screen? What would people say about you? What would your former colleagues say about you? What would your current manager, what would your current direct report say about you? What would your fellow classmates and your cohort at Oxford say about you? That's your reputation. Okay, that's what follows you around all the time, whether you like it or not. And so it's a good idea to think about how you're coming across, because people have immediate judgments about you when they see you, whether you like it or not. And so that's why personal branding is so important. Can anybody tell me in the chat box why you think having it, like, what would be the benefit? We talked about benefits before. What would be the benefit of having a strong personal brand if you have it? How might that benefit you in your career or your life? We got Oliver saying you're recognizable. Okay, makes life easier. Followers. Okay, higher rates that you can charge. Okay, strong personality. Yeah, you're more memorable. People remember you. Rapport with individuals makes you stand out, opens doors. Tao says, okay, is it FOD saying getting things done? You can join the right team. Anna mentions that fits you perfectly. You can create teams. Salash mentioned, we've got more influence. Isabella says we've got Beata saying bringing more value. You can, Camilla says, to be more memorable, to be remembered. Yes, we've got German saying you have more impact on others. Okay, easier to do what you want. You're sought after. I'm actually going to come back to this point in a moment. You sought after. I'm going to come back to that. Broader network. Okay, people trust you. Okay, all sorts of benefits from having a strong personal brand. And so let me just play a quick video for you here on what other people say personal branding is. And April saying discovering things about yourself you may not realize. Yeah. Okay. So what is personal branding? Let's just play a quick 90-second video. This is just a few samplings of some quotes of what people say personal branding is. Now then we're going to come back and explain how you can define it for yourself. It's about a 90-second video here. Right. So what is your unique personal brand? That is what we're going to talk about now. So what is personal branding? Essentially, it is about, number one, defining, and number two, reinforcing what makes you unique. We are going to cover part one right now to help you define your personal brand. Then after the break at around 5 o'clock, we're going to come back and walk you through some ways you can reinforce your brand. And the benefit of this is that it allows you to stand out and differentiate yourself from others. And I think Jay mentioned it helps you stand out from the crowd. Why might you want to do that? And I think there's different people from different parts of the world around here. So this idea of standing out and differentiating yourself may not even be perceived as a positive thing across all the different geographies represented today. However, I would argue that differentiation can enable you to be noticed. And if you're noticed, you can then be considered. Sorry, that should be considered in one line. Considered for opportunities, supported, your initiative supported, you being supported, your ideas getting promoted, you getting promoted to another role. And eventually, hopefully, you'll end up being sought after. And this is then just a virtuous cycle. If people don't think of you for opportunities, you're not going to have you are not going to get the chance to take advantage of those opportunities. So it starts with being noticed. Now, how can you begin to think about this for yourself? My suggestion for you would be to, first of all, get very clear on what you want to be known for, and to think, first of all, at a very high level of what your competitive advantage is, something that you can do that cannot be easily replicated by others. And that might feel like a very broad idea. So what we're going to do now is help you break this down a little bit into some different components. What is something that you can do that cannot be easily copied by others? That is essentially one place that you can start with your personal brand. And each of us has a competitive advantage and circle of competence, according to Tom Gardner, who's the co-founder of The Motley Fool, which is a financial services company. So if you are one of those people out there and you're thinking, like, I don't know if I really have a competitive advantage, or there's like so many other people out there doing what I do. Well, nobody out there has your exact set of experiences and your exact set of skills and knowledge and background. So I would argue that you do have a competitive advantage, and your job, hopefully today, we're going to help you start to do this, is to try to define what that is. And for that, one way to approach this is to just go back to that product branding framework and use it for yourself. So instead, to think about who you are, what you do well, how you approach your work, and your desired impact. Okay, and let me just see. I think somebody is. Let me just make sure everybody's muted here. I think everybody's muted. Okay, all right. So for this, one thing that you can do is I've got this worksheet, and I believe this was sent out to you. But if this doesn't look familiar to you, I'm going to actually put a copy of this into the chat box. Okay, it is a PDF. And you can use this if you want to. Let me just see if I can drag it in. I can't do it from my end. All right, I think I can only do it when I'm a host, maybe. But let me just put a different link in there. You can scan the QR code on the screen. You don't have to have this worksheet to do the exercise, but you do need to have some way of capturing your notes, because in a moment, in a few minutes, we're going to pair up with somebody else, and you're going to have a chance to share highlights of your personal brand with somebody else and get some feedback on it. I've also included a short link in the chat box. Unfortunately, I'm not able to share the actual PDF in the chat box, but I believe this was already emailed to you. Okay, but don't worry too much about trying to get the worksheet if you have no idea where you put that email. But again, if you can either write down your notes, you can capture it in a notes document, notes app, whatever you want. Okay, but you just need a way to capture a few of your thoughts, and they can just be a few bullet points on each one of these. Let's start with who you are. What is your professional title? Where are you from? What is your background? I just saw on LinkedIn one of my connections from the United States. He's Taiwanese, and he actually is very involved with Asian advocacy work in his professional life. So his background, his ethnic background, actually plays a big role in the work that he does professionally. Now that may or may not be true for you, but for some people, something about their background feeds into their professional life. So you might consider your demographic traits. You might consider things like professional certifications. Maybe if you work in operations, you got a Lean Six Sigma black belt certification, or if you work in finance, maybe you got the Chartered Financial Accountant designation. These are all labels that people use professionally to signify who they are in the sea of professionals out there, oftentimes what might appear on a business card. So what I'd like to do now is give you a couple minutes. I'm going to just be quiet and let you jot down a few of your thoughts on how you would describe who you are. And these are just some thought starter questions for you. And then we'll move on to the next one. Okay, so just a couple minutes on your own to jot down your own thoughts. The next one, sorry if some of you are not quite finished. It's very hard to tell who's done and who's not on these kinds of webinars, but I think people are probably mostly there. Okay, so now let's talk about the next level of your personal brand, your skill set. What do you do well? What are your top skills? Now, everybody out there, you probably have 100 different skills. What I would like to have you focus on is, well, what are the top skills that you want to be known for? And it can't be every one of your skills. What is the functional knowledge that you've developed having worked in human resources or marketing or finance or venture capital space or fundraising or the entrepreneurial space? What sort of functional knowledge have you developed? What sort of technical knowledge have you been trained on within your function? What are the areas where you excel? What are your natural strengths? What have you been told by others you consistently do well? These are the components of this. It's similar to the functional skill set that we talked about before with products. What do you do well? What do you want to be known for when it comes to your skill set? So I'll give you a couple minutes to jot down a few thoughts on this one. All right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to shift and talk about the approach to your work. We've talked about your identity, your skills. What about your work style? Are you somebody who's collaborative? Are you someone who is inclusive? Are you a good communicator? Do you bring a certain personality to your work? Are you funny? Are you friendly? Are you introverted? Are you extroverted? What's your leadership style? Are you somebody who is very top down? Are you somebody who's more consensus driven? And I think no presentation in 2024 would be complete without mentioning AI. Okay, now some of you may work in sectors or functions or roles where AI is concerning you a little bit. Well, LinkedIn just a couple months ago in February released the most in-demand skills for 2024. And what they found was that soft skills are more important than they've ever been. And in fact, according to Olivier Sabea, who's at LinkedIn, he says AI is transforming how we work, but uniquely human soft skills have never been more essential. And if you look at the findings of this survey, what they did was they surveyed, this is a bit of a European-centric survey. They surveyed hiring managers in Europe, and they asked them, what are the skills that you find most important when hiring people? What are the most important skills that people possess on your team? And interestingly enough, the skills that came to the top were not technical or hard skills. They were soft skills. They were transferable skills. Fast Company released an article on the 5 skills you need to get hired in 2024. And again, interestingly enough, all of these are soft skills. Okay, these are soft skills. And this is out of all the skills out there. These happen to come to the top. And you can see there's direct overlap in what they stated here. So adaptability and problem solving. Now, I'm not saying you may or may not think of yourself as having these soft skills, but for those of you who do possess one or more of these, just so you're aware, in 2024, these are the types of soft skills that people are especially valuing right now. So you may want to emphasize it. We're going to talk about ways to highlight your soft skills in part 3. So I'm going to give you a moment just to think about your work style, your personality, your soft skills, and take a couple minutes, jot down your notes, and then we're going to finish up with talking about your mission, and then we'll do a quick breakout room exercise. All right. Finally, let's talk for a moment here about your mission. Okay, now I know this might be a little heavy for a Tuesday afternoon, but we're going to talk about mission because many of you work for these companies that have missions that each and every day you roll into the office and you're supporting the mission of the organization. So we've got Jack Ma, he's the founder of CEO of Alibaba Group, and yes, they are an online marketplace for commerce, but it's really about making it easy to do business anywhere. And yes, Tesla makes electric vehicles, but it's about accelerating the advent of sustainable transport. We spend all of our time supporting our organization's missions, which is important. At the same time, it is useful to think about your own professional mission. Now, when is the last time you thought about your professional mission? And you'll see a poll on the screen here. Last week, last month, last year, more than a year ago, never. When did you last think about what you want in your career? What is the whole point of your career? What are you trying to accomplish? When did you last think about that? All right, a few more seconds on the poll, and then I'll share the results with you in a moment. Okay, I think many of you have voted. You can only pick one of these. All right, let's end the poll, share the results with you. Okay, and you can see here, well, a lot of you have actually thought about it quite recently. Many of you last week, last month. Good for you. However, there are a good handful of you who haven't thought about it for a while. Okay, some of you have never thought about it, which is okay. Okay, it's okay. I would like you to take a moment, if you've never thought about your mission, to think about it right now. To think about what difference are you trying to make out there? What is going to be your unique contribution? How are you going to be remembered by your fellow cohort classmates here, by your teams, for those of you who are thinking about making a career move, by your current colleagues once you move on? How are they going to remember you? How do you want to be remembered? What do you want to have as your lasting impact and legacy out there? Take a moment and try to articulate this in a couple sentences. It's not the easiest thing to do. And if you don't know, you can literally write down, I don't know yet. Okay, but try to take a couple minutes and articulate that to yourself. And then after this, we're going to do a breakout room exercise. Okay, now, as you're finishing that up, now, I know some of you may not be quite done. No matter where you're at, it's okay. We're just taking an initial stab at this. Okay, it's just to get you started on this. So we've talked about these 4 components of your personal brand. What we'd like to do now is a quick breakout room exercise. Now, always going so quickly in our careers, we're all so busy, we don't have a chance to stop and think about where we're going. Now, how you pull all this together is, I've just got myself up here on the screen as an example. I've just put a few bullet points in to each one of these categories. I will not go through this whole thing, but you'll see that I've just put a few things related to labels of how I want to be defined professionally, some skills I want to be known for, my approach. Now, this is not to say I'm always a calm person. Okay, I'm not, but it is what I aspire to be. It's what I want people to think when they work with me, that I'm organized or calm and disciplined. Okay, so this is aspirational also. It's forward-looking, and then this statement here is a way of collecting together everything that I've listed below. Now, what you do with this is, well, you can do 3 things. It can help you make clearer career decisions, to help you think about which move is going to reinforce your brand, to choose your crowd more carefully, to surround yourself with people who support your unique ambitions, and finally, to vet professional opportunities, like if you should speak at a conference or if you should join a committee. The question to ask yourself is, given the type of personal brand that I'm trying to build for myself, given what I want to be known for, is this experience going to reinforce that? And am I uniquely positioned to deliver value? And if not, maybe let somebody else do it. And if you think, well, I don't have time for this, the problem is, if you don't define who you are, others are going to do it for you. So my suggestion is to get on the front foot and to start to be proactive in defining and reinforcing your personal brand in everything that you do. And that is what we're going to talk about after we take a quick 5-minute break. And if you have any questions during the break, I'm going to stick around here. Feel free to let me know. But we're going to come back at about 5:15. It's a quick break. We'll talk about how to build your brand on social media, your organization, and also your industry. But let's take a quick break right now, and I'll see you back here in 5 minutes. For those of you who are returning, I'm just going to resume the recording here. Welcome back. Hope you had a nice break. Let's talk about how to build your brand. So let's finish with some concrete actions you can start taking right away to build your brand on LinkedIn, in your organization, and across your industry. Now, everything you do is either going to dilute or reinforce your personal brand. So you need to take concrete steps to make your brand credible and believable. Otherwise people aren't going to buy it. You could say you've got a personal brand, but people aren't going to believe it. So there's 3 parts to creating a strong personal brand. You want to be selective. Okay, you can't be everything to everyone. You want to be specific about what you're offering. You want to be specific about what you're offering. And of course, you want to be suitable for your desired audience. Oliver is asking, is creating a personal brand harder for introverts? Which recommendations do you have for introverts creating your personal brand? We're going to go through some ways right now, actually, but is it harder? You know, in this day and age, I think stereotypically you might think that the extroverts or people who are more comfortable speaking about themselves, like they may be at an advantage, but there's so many other ways that you can build your brand right now that don't require you actually speaking, like that don't require you actually going out there and being in front of a large crowd. That is one way to do it, but that's only one of the ways to do it. So I don't think you're necessarily at a disadvantage. I type as an introvert myself, so I understand. I don't always feel as comfortable talking about myself. That's also maybe a cultural tilt that I have as an Asian. Um, but I think that there are ways you can do it. We're going to talk about some ways you can do this right now, and maybe some of these will resonate with you. And in fact, this is where social media can be so powerful because it doesn't require you getting up in front of an audience necessarily, although it's a virtual audience. But LinkedIn's still the largest online professional network out there. And before we get started here, I got to do a quick poll just to find out. On which social media platforms do you have an active profile? Facebook, LinkedIn, X, Medium, YouTube, Instagram. Any others that I'm forgetting? Feel free to put them into the chat box. On which platforms do you have an active profile? Like you've got a current profile, you're active on there, you're frequently, maybe you're even contributing. Somebody's saying none, that's totally fine. You can have a very well-rounded, fulfilled life, but even if you're not on social media, it is okay. However, okay, I will challenge that a little bit with, let me just share the results here for a second. First of all, everybody's on LinkedIn, that's good. Okay, then it looks like Instagram and then Facebook, and then it kind of drops off after that. Okay, so the question is, so I know somebody mentioned they're not on social media, which is okay. Okay, do you have to be on social media? Should you spend time on social media? Probably a little bit. From a professional maintenance standpoint, probably a little bit. I'll just throw out some stats here for you. Okay, Manifest 2020 recruitment survey. 90% of hiring managers say that social media is important to evaluating a candidate. Nearly half of employers, according to CareerBuilder, are less likely to invite you for an interview if they can't find you online. 98% of employers research candidates online. Okay, so let's just find out from you, okay, how do you research other people online? If you wanted to find out about somebody, where would you go? Tiago's saying 2% on TikTok. Well, yeah, I guess I'm saying what I mean, maybe it depends on what, as Ahmed mentioned, it depends on what I mean by that. I don't mean you're like on TikTok watching people pointing and dancing. I'm talking about like you have followers on TikTok and you've got an active channel. That's what I meant by it. But, yeah. Anyway. Okay, where do you go to research others? Let's find out what people say. And the survey says, okay, LinkedIn, most of you. Okay, a lot of you go to Google. Many of you go to Facebook. Okay, and so whether or not you like the idea of social media, the reality is that people will look you up online. That is just the way things are right now. So let's start with LinkedIn. Okay, now this is not a LinkedIn webinar. Okay, it was not dedicated to walking through how to use LinkedIn. All I want to do right now is take a few minutes and just walk you through, these 4 components of your personal brand. Let's just talk about ways that you can integrate these components directly into your LinkedIn profile. And these are very simple things. These are not complicated things. These are meant to be simple things so that you can use your LinkedIn profile to reinforce your brand. And it starts by using a clear headline descriptor. Okay, and as you can see here, as Halal has done, she just put startup advisor and product privacy at Facebook. Use a precise headline. That's it. Okay, that's box number 1. Box number 2, your skill set can go in one of 3 places generally right now. Now, the first place it can go in is the about summary. So if you haven't populated your about summary, with what you want to be known for, I would do that. Now, notice here, Adrienne is an editorial director. She's an editor. She's a journalist. But when she talks about the things that she does well, she is calling out public speaking, brand storytelling, training, and mentoring. Now, that's interesting because she's an editor, but this is what she wants to be known for. She's not saying anything about editorial work here. Okay, she does allude to it here, but she's mentioning it. She's also talking about these other things. And in fact, when she talks about her current experiences, she's talking about leading revenue-driving brand extension products, serving as the Muse's spokesperson. Alexander's saying, how do you distill the words you want to highlight for headline? I find it hard to leave out key achievements and roles. So yeah, your headline can't do everything for you. It is what it sounds like. It is only a headline. It is the title of the blog post. It's the headline of the article. And the biggest challenge is trying to get it all in there. So again, that's why I would use it to list out your descriptors. You could maybe list out a skill up there, but you don't have that many characters. I would dedicate the about summary, the experience details, and there's one other spot to mention. This is not it, okay, but I'm just going to mention it very quickly, which is the creator mode, which I believe they are now phasing out. But when you could turn creator mode on, you could get these hashtags, okay? I just want to mention that, but I believe it's being phased out now. What is now replacing it is this skills spotlight. And what you can do is, I'm just going to put this up on the screen so you can see how you do this, is they just rolled out at the end of last year in October, I think is when they rolled this out, the skills spotlight feature, which is turned off by default. And this is where getting clear on the 3 to 5 skills you want to be known for is very useful. So what you do here is, if you go to your profile and you scroll down, a lot of people don't know about this, is you go to the About Edit button, and if you scroll down here, you can list up to 5 skills that will then be featured at the top of your LinkedIn profile. You can do this for all of your roles also, but these are the 5 that are at the top of your profile in the About section. And so what this looks like here is, now this guy's just chosen to put 3 here, your top skills. Okay, you get up to 5. These are pre-defined categories. So one thing you could do is think about the top skills you want to be known for, but then in each of these roles, as you think about your professional narrative, think about the 3 to 5 skills in each of your roles that you want to be seen to have developed or exercised in each of those roles. And you don't necessarily need to repeat each of these skills in every one of your roles. Ideally, there's a bit of an evolution. And what I often see with people is they start off in more as their individual contributors, focusing on the technical skills. Eventually, they go to managerial skills, and then in their more recent roles, they focus on more strategic or leadership skills. That's a very common trajectory that people will use. Okay, so you can pick those here, the top 5, right at the top there. Okay. Now, your approach, if you didn't know this person, okay, if you just looked at her recommendations here, attention to detail, one of the most reliable, strong work ethic. Okay, this is what other people have said in her recommendations section. Again, this is very helpful for the introverts out there who may not feel comfortable saying things like, I am a very collaborative individual. That can feel very artificial and forced. So get other people to say it for you. So when you ask for your recommendations, and I would encourage you to ask for recommendations, ideally from your former managers, ask them to comment on those specific aspects of your career that you want to be known for. And you do that for each of your recommendations, and soon a bit of a theme starts to emerge. Last thing is your mission. Now, you may not know who Isaiah Henkel is, so you might want to do a little research on him. As many of you said, you go to LinkedIn. This is what I would do. I would probably go to where he spends his time on LinkedIn, and I would probably start with the articles that he's written. So let's see here. The most intelligent, here's the article. 7 industry trends employers want you to know after the interview. 50 questions that get PhDs a job they never want to quit. There's 13 networking tips to avoid being the awkward PhD in the room. 5 embarrassing PhD networking mistakes. Okay, that's about as long as I would spend on that. Then I might scroll down to, or I might scroll over to the post, which is what he's commented on, shared, and liked. Here we go. So hardest working PhDs transition into industry. Transition story into a Boston-based biotech company. All right. Here's a PhD webinar, how to get hired into a management role. So pretty quickly, you can probably figure out that Isaiah Henkel's mission is all about helping academics move from academia into the industry. And you can tell that just based on what he has shared, what he's commented on, what he's published. So you want to publish content that reinforces your personal brand. Articles, interviews, talks, and these don't have to be your articles or your interviews or your talks. Again, just going back to that introversion question before. So the other thing you can do, final point here, is you can adjust your background image and you can customize your background image. And you may not know anything about Kelly Price, but you can probably guess that her mission relates to something around the environment or sustainability. And sure enough, you look here, marketing advisor at Climate Investments. So just looking at your background image and customizing it can help you reinforce your brand in a certain way. Now, how do you figure out what to put back there? Okay, well, there's all sorts of articles online that you can check out. Here's one from me, okay, but you don't have to look at my article. Okay, there's many articles out there to help you generate ideas of what to feature in your background image. And that's one way to generate ideas. The other way is just going back to AI. You can go to your friendly chatbot. Okay, your friendly AI chatbot. Now you can go to your chosen one. Now, whether it's Cloud or ChatGPT, I use Poe primarily. This is my chosen chatbot. And let's say that I want to figure out what object I can put in my background image that represents sustainability. And I'll just put that into one of these chatbots and then just let this thing generate the ideas for me. So if you're somebody out there who, like me, is not like the most creative person, I don't consider myself the most creative person out there, you can just use a chatbot. These things are great for generating ideas. Now, Alexander is saying, thinking tactically, if I start making sweeping updates to my LinkedIn, that might signal to people in my firm that I'm leaving. Yeah, that might be a flight risk. What's the play here? So the play here is, yeah, right. So like, you update your LinkedIn profile and you're connected to your manager, and then, you show up in the office the next day and they're kind of thinking, well, are you looking around, or like, what are you doing on LinkedIn? If you can get into the habit of making a practice of updating your LinkedIn on, let's just say, a quarterly basis, and if you start to do that regularly, and it could be just small little updates. And if somebody asks, you can say, well, it's just part of I just do like some professional housekeeping. Every quarter, I just go in and I just make sure my LinkedIn profile is up to date. It's just something I do. It's just professional maintenance. I've heard it's good practice. So, and you're a representative of the company. And I think if people wanted to reach out to you in the company, then they'd want to know what you do. So that's how I would play it. But you're right. If you just suddenly do this and you've never done it before, then you are correct. It can actually raise eyebrows a little bit. So the idea is you want to build a habit around doing this so that when you do it, it doesn't suddenly pop up. It's that okay, well, this is somebody who's just regularly doing this. If you share an article about a topic that you care about, I don't think that that's going to necessarily raise eyebrows. So this is not just about profile maintenance. It's about sharing relevant content that you feel signals your domain expertise or even your interest in topics related to your domain or your function or your sector. Okay, so now there's 4 things here to mention, and then I'll just pause for a second, see if anybody has any questions. Number 1, I would add the headline descriptor. Okay, number 2, add bullets that capture your skills. Number 3, ask for one recommendation and make sure they comment on those aspects of your personal brand that you want to be known for. And finally, share one useful post. And if you do those 4 things, your LinkedIn profile will work harder to reinforce your personal brand than it probably is right now. Anybody have any questions on LinkedIn? How often should you post? So Jay, there are all sorts of, it's really up to you. Okay, you're going to see all sorts of articles out there about how many times you should post, when's the ideal time to post. And let me just share. Let me see. I think there's a Buffer time to post. I'm just looking up something for you right now. If you go to Buffer, they have articles on the best time to post on social media. So I'm just trying to pull this right now as I'm hosting. It's a little tricky to do, but you might check. This is just one article, okay? But there's all sorts of articles out there on the best times to post, how often to post. I don't know, once every couple weeks, once a month. I think that's fine. Mesna, did you have a question? Maybe not. Okay, let's
Yes, I have
go
a
ahead. Yes, go
question regarding the bio.
ahead.
So I'm active on LinkedIn, and I just realized that some people, I don't know if this is just only in my area, I'm from Middle East, Saudi Arabia. Some like higher position, they try to not to put anything in the bio. And sometimes it's hard to squeeze yourself and all your experiences and telling a story in your bio.
Yep.
So what is your recommendation for this? And how can we utilize it or not to utilize it in a way that be positive for our career?
Yeah, okay. So yeah, question around like, well, how do you squeeze all that into a bio? It's so hard to do that. It is hard to do it. It is hard to do it. And so you either have you got two options. You can either just abstain from doing it and just not do it, or you can make an attempt to encapsulate your professional experiences in a paragraph or two. And you're right, it is not easy to do, which is why it's so important to be selective about what you want to be known for, because you can't put everything there. I would attempt to do it. I would attempt to do it. Now, there's kind of like these little fancy tricks you can do these days where you can actually paste in your LinkedIn. You can actually paste in your LinkedIn. I'm not condoning this, okay? But you can paste in your LinkedIn profile, and you can have something like a ChatGPT take a stab at summarizing your professional history. I've had very mixed results in attempting that, okay? But it might be a good starting point. Actually, with AI, I always think it's a nice starting point. It's a nice first draft. So that's one way to do it. But really, it's not that different from writing a cover letter. It's about trying to come up with a way to summarize very quickly and concisely what are the key aspects of my career. I would absolutely do it. I would definitely use that real estate. It's there. I would use it. We got a question, a private question here about, do I need to post my full work history on there? I'm comfortable sharing my whole working life and locations on there. Well, you don't need to put every single accomplishment bullet that you might put into a CV, but if you ask recruiters, I'm going to refer to the recruiter's point of view on this, because I do get asked this question a lot. The vast majority of recruiters out there will tell you to simply copy and paste your CV onto your LinkedIn profile, because it saves them a step in having to ask for it from you. Now, if it's confidential, obviously you don't want to put it up there. I would list out your roles and your responsibilities and your key accomplishments, just as I would on a CV. That's what I would recommend you do. And that's what most recruiters would prefer that you do. How important are recommendations? Anna's asking. I think it's one of those things where I've gotten mixed feedback on this. Some people look at them, some people don't. I feel like they're a nice to have. And if people scroll down there and if people look at them, why not have it say something that reinforces your personal brand? Why not have other people reinforce what you will respond to in an interview when they ask you what are some of your strengths? So to me, it's an opportunity to reinforce what you want to be known for. We got another question about any tips on mentioning soft skills. So I would mention them. You can build them into your bullets. You can build them into your role summaries, and you can also have other people comment on them in the recommendation section. Let's get one more question here. How can I structure my content for maximum impact? Role do frameworks like the 4 E's of content play in this process? Okay, so look, you can do this if you're a personal brand. You can do this however you want to do it. My suggestions are to generally be selective and to be concise. Those are my overarching suggestions, and I would be consistent. So I would try to decide on what you want your positioning to be, and then populate your LinkedIn profile accordingly. Okay. And we got one more question about, what if there's an NDA, confidentiality clause? Well, then don't list it. Okay. If it's confidential, don't list it. Definitely leave that one out for sure. If people want to ask, I don't think you need to say, the question that I'm getting is, do I need to say that there's an NDA? I wouldn't get into that. I would say that you can just skip it, maybe find another bullet you can talk about. In the interview, if you get asked the question, then you could mention, hey, there's an NDA, I can't get into details on this. Good questions. Okay, let's talk about 3 ways you can build your brand within your organization. Okay, and let's just go back to some marketing concepts here. Equity, awareness, and alliances, these are all things we care a lot about in marketing. let's go through these one at a time. Let me tell you what I mean by this. Okay, so brand equity, it's a metric that we use in branding to assess the strength of a brand. Are consumers saying that your brand is about the things that you want your brand to be about? Do they use the words to describe your brand that you want to be known for or not? That's your equity. And we monitor this quite closely. We monitor specific aspects of our equity that we care about. So for example, I used to work in marketing bin liners and trash bags. One component of equity is how strong are the strength of the brand. That strength metric is really important in that category. Trust is really important in that category. So what I'd like you to think about is, well, what is your brand equity? What do you want to be known for? And to specifically and selectively engage with projects, people, and purposes that reinforce that equity. So to seek out relevant projects, to seek out and volunteer for roles and assignments where you can demonstrate your brand in action, especially if you're trying to make a pivot. Try to selectively go after those experiences that reinforce your position. According to Joe Miller, who is the CEO of a leadership organization called Be Leader. Number 2, drive awareness for yourself. So we talk a lot about top of mind awareness in branding. So for example, if I mention the category hotel chain, many of you are probably thinking about the W Hotel just because we were just talking about it. Or if I say automobiles, what's probably top of mind for you right now is either Volvo or Aston Martin because we talked about it. Okay, so that's top of mind awareness. So what you want to have happen is if an opportunity pops up, you want to be ideally one of the people that comes to mind for that opportunity. And one way you can drive awareness for yourself within your organization is to network beyond your team, to raise your internal visibility. I work with a wide range of corporate clients, and so sometimes I'm privy to hearing what sort of cool tools and techniques and opportunities there are in different organizations to raise one's visibility. I'm just going to share a quick sampling of some of the things I've heard from some of these companies that I work with. Now, I'm not saying you need to do all these things, okay, but these are just some ideas for you. You could join a committee. Okay, and I know some of you are thinking that's the last thing I want to do is join another committee. I don't want to join a committee. That's fine, okay, but joining a committee is one way to raise your internal visibility because you are very likely to work with a very cross-functional team. Attend team gatherings. Okay, now again, I know, again, for the introverts out there, the Christmas party, the holiday, the company Christmas party is probably not your favorite place to spend your time. Okay, I get it, okay? Most people I know don't really want to go to a company offsite. Okay, but you got to do it. Okay, you got to go to these offsite team building activities. I don't like them. I'm an introvert. I don't like them, but it's one way to make sure that you remain top of mind with people. Participate in trainings, especially company-wide cross-functional trainings. Work cross-functionally. Whenever you have the opportunity to work on a cross-functional project, go for it. Okay, they're more complicated. They're more complex. Also more opportunities for you to raise your visibility with a broader team. Seek out a mentor, ideally one in a different function and even in a different division. Seek out a mentor who's not on your immediate team. Great way to raise your internal visibility. You could mentor other people. You could serve as a mentor for somebody else. You could join a group. So some companies I work with, they've got employee resource groups. Let me just I was throwing out, I'm going out to the World Bank next week, and I know they've got employee resource groups for people from different parts of the world. They've got employee resource groups for people who come from certain minority backgrounds, have certain interests in certain causes and initiatives. Some companies have social groups. Some companies have internal tools like a company internal directory or an intranet or regular monthly check-ins or open town hall meetings, events, internal boards to publicize the things that you're working on. I've seen some companies have digital boards where they can advertise or publicize the key projects that they're rolling out to the company. So these are all opportunities to raise your internal visibility, and I would try to do it. I would take it upon yourself to drive some internal PR for yourself. This is one of the things that I really struggled with when I was working in the corporate world. Was I was so focused on doing my work, I forgot about publicizing my work, and both matter a lot. Network beyond your team. People promote people whom they know, trust, and see, stretching beyond their immediate duties. Interacting with other teams and their leadership helps you become a household name, according to Morgan Cheney, head of marketing at Blue Board. Finally, in your organization, build alliances. So we talk about partnerships in marketing. When I was working on Haagen-Dazs, we partnered with Wimbledon. When I worked at Goob, we partnered with Virgin Atlantic, because these brands reinforce our desired brand positioning. So what I would suggest is for you to surround yourself with people who also align with your ambitions. There's a great quote from a guy named Jim Rohn, and he says, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." Let me see. Who am I spending my time with? Wow, do I want to be like those people? Do I admire those people? I got a client, her boss is like, I mean, he is basically like the guy from The Office. He is totally lost. And what she has done is she has taken it upon herself now to seek out a mentor who can be a coach for her, because she's not getting any of that from him. And so you want to try to proactively seek out the people who can support your ambitions and surround yourself with those people. And it's not going to be everybody. Not everybody's going to be on your side. Try to find those supportive people out there. And through osmosis, you'd be surprised how quickly you can get where you want to go. So surround yourself with the types of people who are doing the things that you want to eventually be doing. Okay, so I know I threw a lot at you there. So let's just recap here. 3 actions you can take. Number 1, if you can, now you can't always do this, pursue one project that's going to allow you to showcase the skills that you want to be known for. Number 2, speak with someone outside of your immediate team, and do it today. Do it today. This is not going to happen on its own. Number 3, take the initiative to connect with or reconnect with one supportive mentor or colleague. Next week, I'm actually heading out to Washington, D.C., and I'm actually having lunch with my former manager, who was my very first manager when I first started working. This was way back in 2002. And we've actually stayed in touch for the past 2 decades. She's now running her own business, and it's going to be really great to catch up with her, because we're actually doing somewhat similar work. And so that is something I would recommend you do. Connect with someone who's like a supportive colleague of yours. You do these 3 things, and within your organization, you'll be able to reinforce your brand in a way that perhaps you are not right now. Any questions about within your organization things you can do? Feel free to put them into the chat box before we finish up with the last topic today, which is how you can build your brand in your broader sector and industry. Especially important if you're trying to lay down the seeds for maybe eventually making a move, or maybe you just want to position yourself as a thought leader, or you want to be more influential, which I know some of you mentioned in the very first poll we had today. So let's talk about 3 ways that you can build your brand within across your broader industry outside of your organization, which is also very important. Again, 3 marketing concepts: visibility, impact, and reach. Number 1, raise your visibility. We talked about visibility with IKEA and Apple and Fendi. Your visibility is what's going to allow people to think of you when opportunities come up. One way you can do this is to gain media coverage. Now, before I get into this, okay, I got to put a big caveat here. Not all of these ideas are going to be right for you. Some of your organizations may actually prevent you or discourage you from doing this, or you may not be allowed to do this for regulatory reasons. But I'm just going to put this out there because I want to share a range of ideas with you today. If you've ever looked at an article out there, this one, I just pulled this from The Guardian, okay? And you ever see these people here who are quoted in these articles? Howard Archer, the chief economic advisor to the EY Item Club, Andrew Wishart, the UK economics analyst at Capital Economics, said that. Have you ever wondered, where do they find these people for these articles? Like, where in the world do they find these people? Well, it turns out that this is perhaps something strategic that these individuals are doing to raise their voice in their industries, to position themselves as thought leaders. So share your advice and support within your areas of expertise, serve on boards, engage with other industry leaders and journalists. This journalist piece is what I want to focus on. Okay, this is Stacy Cohen, CEO of a PR firm called Co-Communications. There are two ways to connect with journalists who are writing articles in your industry, perhaps relevant to your sector. They find you, or you find them. Again, these are the two ways you can do it. That's it. That's it. That's how it happens. Let's focus on what you can control, which is you finding them. There are all sorts of resources out there. Now, I'm going to include a compilation of all these resources I'm about to share with you. I'll include a link at the end. You can access it for free, and it's just, I've compiled all this stuff, okay? So you don't need to capture all this, but these are what we call media call-out resources. They're different. They focus on different geographies. So this one's called Help a Reporter Out. There's one called Response. Help a Reporter Out is very North America-centric. Response Source is very UK-centric. Quoted is quite global. SourceBottle is more Australia, New Zealand. We got Muckrack, which is a journalist database. Now, let me just explain how this works. Okay, so each of you has an area of expertise. And so what happens is you sign up for these media call-out notifications. So here, and you list out what you want to comment on. So here for Quoted, for example, I've pointed out that I want to talk about careers topics as a source. You'll sign up as a source. And then you'll get these alerts in your email. And you'll also get a list of all the different articles being written out there. And this one's for the Stylist magazine. And this is a pretty big publication in the UK. And they were looking for somebody to comment on some red flags to look out for in a job interview. So what I did was I responded to this media call out with my quote. And then they featured this quote in the article in the Stylist. Okay, and that's exactly how it works. So you will get a notification, or you'll get an email with a list of headlines and questions that reporters have. Help a Reporter Out puts 3 of these out each day. And if you have an article if you see somebody writing about an article that you could comment on, or they're asking a question that you feel credible to comment on, you just respond to the email with your quote. Maybe they feature you. Okay, that's exactly how it works. You can even create a profile for yourself in something like Quoted. Here's somebody who's put a profile up for himself at Microsoft, and he's put in some hashtags of the things that he feels he could credibly comment on. And so if I'm a reporter, I could actually directly message William and say, hey, I'm writing an article for the Financial Times. Would you be willing to just answer this quick question I had about AI right now, how it applies to AWS? Okay, that's it. That's how that works. Okay, if you want to look up a particular journalist and you want to find somebody who covers a certain beat, you could actually type in, I don't know, fintech or whatever you focus on. Okay, lean, I don't know, product management or demand planning, or whatever it is that you focus on. Type it in here, the sector, the geography, and you can find people's profiles, these journalist profiles, and you can actually contact them and say, hey, I happen to know a lot about, I don't know, rodents here or something or whatever. And so if you ever need to comment on that, feel free to drop me a note and I can give you a quick quote. Okay, that's it. That's how that works. Okay, these are free. Now, this is a whole topic in and of itself. We could spend a whole hour talking about this. The best article I've ever read on how to get press coverage for yourself is written by a woman named Debbie Pfeiffer. And I'm going to put this directly into the chat box right now. And you can read all about how to reach out to reporters here. Great article, long article, really, really helpful. Okay, so that is one thing you can do, is share your voice. Okay, share your voice. Number 2, contribute opinion pieces. Create impact. Now, I'm going to focus on broad industry publications, but you can do this at whatever scale you want. Okay, again, Financial Times, if you look at the Financial Times, you'll see all sorts of people contributing articles to the Financial Times. And if you ever wondered, well, how do these people get into these publications? Well, there was always a first time for every one of these people. And the way you do this is, here, for example, this is my Forbes contributing articles column here. So I'll put up articles every so often to Forbes. Now, how do you do this? Well, the way you do this is you need to first think about how you want to position yourself, then identify target publications, and eventually you can find the pitch guidelines. But let's just go through these steps real quickly one at a time. So number one, decide on your positioning. Very important. Before you go out there and start reaching out to all these different publications saying, hey, I'd like to share a commentary on a particular industry topic. Before you do that, just pause for a second and think, what are the skills that I want to be known for? What sort of industry knowledge do I want to leverage? What sort of functional expertise do I want to convey when putting myself out there in the press? Okay, do that first. After that, then you can decide on your target publication list. And you can think about things like, again, it's not an exhaustive list, but you can think about things like, well, how relevant is this to reinforcing my personal brand? Would I be credible in this space? Does this publication have the reach in my target geography or with my target audience? And you can create a short list of publications and you can rank them. Okay, this is just one way to do this, a systematic way of doing this. You can turn to things like SimilarWeb to identify the reach that a particular publication has in a particular geography. Okay, so focus on the ones that have the reach in the places you want to reach. And then you find the pitch guidelines. And the way you do that, okay, this is the way that I do it, okay, is that you just Google it. You just Google publication name, pitch, or contribute, and here you go. Here's how you contribute to The Guardian. Here's how you write a piece for the Financial Times, and just follow those instructions exactly. This does not guarantee you're going to get in, okay? There are a lot of people pitching. But if you don't pitch, if you don't try it, you'll never get in. So give it a shot, okay? See what happens. Make sure you're allowed to do this, by the way, before you do this, if you're a representative for your company, okay? When I worked at one company at Goo, I was able to do this. At Haagen-Dazs, I couldn't do this. Okay, it had to be the marketing director who did this kind of stuff. Final point today, then we're going to wrap up. Expand your reach. Speak at conferences. When was the last time you spoke at a conference? Within the last month? Within the last quarter? Within the last year? Over a year ago or never? When did you last speak at a conference? Could be virtual, could be in person. When did you last speak at a conference? And a few more seconds on that poll. Okay, let's end that poll. All right, let's share the results with you here. Okay, now you can see here that for many of you, never done it. Okay, for some of you, it's been a while. There's been a handful of you who have done it recently. Now, this is not for everybody, but it is something to consider. Because people who step on stage position themselves as subject experts. It builds internal and external credibility while driving PR for your company. Alexander's making a very good point. Okay, this is the point I was trying to make earlier. Just make sure you got the green light to do this from your organization. Okay, you got to check this for sure. Yeah. Okay, so big caveat there. Ahmad's asked, do we need to have an active participation in forums like LinkedIn before we try with one of those? Yeah, it depends on your comfort level. I think it's good to dip your toe in first in a safe space before you put yourself out there and do put a column article out there in the New York Times or whatever the publication. Yeah, I would probably build up to that maybe. Yeah, test the waters a little bit first. How do you find conferences to speak at? Well, you could use something like Quoted. Okay. Also, April's making a very good point. You don't have to be like the keynote speaker. You could also be a panelist. It's actually being a panelist is a very efficient way to get yourself on stage without a tremendous amount of prep. So yeah, being a panelist, I like being a panelist. I wish I got invited more to be panelist to things because the speaking thing, I enjoy it. It takes much more work than being a panelist. And so that's a really good tip there from April. Okay, so you can sign up to Quoted for speaker alerts. You can Google things like Apply Speaker Year Subject Conference. That's one term you might want to use. Another term you might want to use is Call for Speakers, Conference, Location, Year, and Subject. Okay, and you'll see a bunch of conferences looking for speakers. The final tip here, if you're looking for speakers, again, you can go to Turn to AI. I use Perplexity for my AI search. And what you can do is if you're looking for, let's say, a sales conference, okay, you can go to Perplexity. And I can say, suggest some sales conferences in Europe looking for speakers in 2024. And it will list out, it's like magic. Okay, it will list out conferences that are looking for speakers right now. Suggest a few more Okay, here's suggest a few more. Here's a few more you might want to consider. The best way I think you can find conferences, though, is to ask around. Ask your manager, ask people in your sector, what are some good conferences to go to? What are some ones to avoid? Okay. So just to finish up this part, 3 things to keep in mind. Okay, 3 things to keep in mind. Number 1, you connect with a media contact, maybe share your expert views if you want to, and maybe explore one event where you could present. And again, it doesn't have to be a huge stage. It could just be a small stage, or it could be even at a company event or at a small industry event. Start where you feel comfortable. Okay, now in closing, got to wrap up here. I got to let you guys go. So we've covered 3 topics today. We've talked about branding, personal branding, helping you stand out, and actions you can take to strengthen your brand. Now, if building a personal brand was easy, everyone would do it. Everyone would have a very eloquently written, concise LinkedIn summary of their entire professional history. They would be known for exactly all the things they want to be known for. It actually does take some work. The good news is that you don't have to do all these things I just mentioned. You can just pick one of them and start there. And if you'd like to, you can feel free to share the one step you'll take to reinforce your brand. Okay, your brand. Okay, what's one step you're going to take? Feel free to put that in the chat box. One thing that you might try to do following today's session. And most importantly, enjoy being the brand called you, because as you saw in the video, everyone else is taken. I've got Vikas here saying he's going to try Quoted. Yeah, definitely check out Quoted. Worth checking out. Vlad is saying, I'm going to get a recommendation from my manager. Very good. Yeah, do it now. Do it when you feel it's appropriate. If you got a former manager, definitely do it. If you're on your way out from a company, that's a decent time to ask for a recommendation. April is going to make some LinkedIn updates. One final piece of quick administrative request from you. If you wouldn't mind taking a moment to share feedback on today's session, I'm going to put this link in the chat box also. I'm supposed to give you a minute to do this right now. And then I'm going to leave you, I know it's 6 o'clock now, I'm going to leave you with one final link with a resource, which is a compilation of everything we've talked about today. Or not everything, but like many of the things we've covered today. So I'll give you about a minute to do that, and then I gotta wrap up here. Someone's asking if I'm going to share the slides from the session. So I'm not going to share the whole slide deck, but that is a good segue into, everybody got the survey link? I'll just paste it one more time, and then I need to just wrap up because I know people need to probably go here. So I'll just, if you want to stay in touch with me, there's a couple ways you can do that. So you're more than welcome to, well, check out my show if you want to. It's called careerrelaunch.net, and you can get that on any platform where you get your podcasts. Okay. And finally, if you'd like to stay in touch with me, or if you want to contact me afterwards, my contact details are here. My email is listed on the bottom, and I've also compiled a list of the resources that I mentioned today and a few other additional personal branding resources at josephliu.co/pb. And with that, I've got to officially wrap up. So, but I am happy to take some questions, but I will officially wrap up. Thank you so much for coming today. I hope you found this useful. If you need to take off, feel free to take off, and best of luck to you with the rest of your program at Oxford. Thank you for having me today.